There will never be any forestry here. We will never cut the trees down. And think about how much land. We're just seeing a snippet of the Olympic Peninsula, the Olympic National Park. It's a very large park, and it's sort of set aside. And the next stop that we're going to be at, you will see what we have done to the landscape in terms of fragmenting it and utilizing it in various ways. So, really enjoy the view. Secondly, there's a conifer right there. It's a small tree or shrub. It's called a Pacific yew, Y-E-W, okay? It used to have absolutely no value. People, if you were a forester, you didn't want it because it was just taking up space and it was growing. Then they discovered that in the bark there was a substance that could help cure cancer. So once they figured that out, all of a sudden there was sort of a little, what we call a cottage industry, where people would go out in the forest and peel bark off and sell it so they could extract that substance to cure cancer, right? And so it's one of those when we talk about values, existence values, and also values into the future. We don't know if all of these species that we don't use today have some value into the future. Right? So it's important to conserve all of the biodiversity that we have. They don't peel bark anymore, they can make it synthetic now, but it's a good example, a good local example where all of a sudden a tree that had no value all of a sudden became really, really valuable. Right? So think about that whenever. It may be hard to think about that mosquitoes and flies have values, but everybody plays a part in the ecosystem, okay? And every time we lose a species, think about flying an airplane. And every time you lose a species, it's like losing a part of the airplane. There's probably some of the parts of the airplane that you can still keep flying. But at one point, that plane's going to crash, right? We just don't know when. And think about it, some of the pieces are more important than others, right? So those would be our keystone species. So some of the parts on the airplane are definitely more important than others. If you lose your engines, you're done, right? And so think about the engines you can think about those as being the keystone species, okay? So does that make sense? All right, let's go to the Elwha then.